Hi, Gary. Hello, folks. Good morning. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to State of the City. All 1,300 plus, I think. It's a terrific crowd for us. I'm Graham Henderson, and I'm the CEO of the London Chamber of Commerce, and proud to be so. It is always a great conundrum for those of us who have to introduce people who really need no introduction at all. People who are beloved, respected, revered, and sought out. People who've been accorded great honors, such as doctorates of law. People who have shared their wisdom with countless others through the media of radio, lectures, television, and music. The London Chamber and our guests, we are all lucky to have two such people. Folks, I give you Mary Lou and Dan Smoke. For those of you who don't know, Mary Lou is Ojibwe Nation from Batchewana on Lake Superior. And Dan is Seneca Nation from Six Nations Grand River. This morning, they will be sharing with us an ancient welcoming ceremony in which Indigenous peoples have participated for thousands of years.
Where I come from, when we greet one another, we say bonjour. So bonjour. Asanyenas kwe and dejnakas makwe dodem Batchewana Bay Dunjba. You ready to try that? For those of you who don't speak Canadian, I'm going to translate what I said in the original Ojibwe language that was spoken in this country for thousands of years. This is the land of the Anishinaabe, the Iroquois, the Lenni Lenape, of countless tribes, because our nations traveled all over the place. We went, my people are often called hunters and gatherers, but I say we go where the action is, you know? So where there was berries, we went to pick the berries, and when there was moose, we'd go to the moose, and when it was fishing season, we'd go, we'd be in the water getting smelts pretty soon around this time, you know? So we always went where the food source was. And so today we still do that. We just talked to one of our friends here who works at the university, and she goes fishing, and she brings us over fish all the time. So we still continue on with those ways. And Dan and I share the teachings that we've been taught. We were fortunate enough to sit with the elders, and that's what we're sharing with you. We didn't read a book to learn what we're teaching you, and we didn't watch a movie. We had to go to ceremonies. We traveled far and wide. Dan is Seneca from Six Nations, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Yahweh, Chimigwech Marilu. Yes, Asanyenas, Indishnakas, Kildare, Dodem, Six Nations, Grand River, Dinjiba. My spirit name in the Seneca language is Asanyenas. It means star in flight. I was given that name in the Onondaga Longhouse on Six Nations Grand River territory. I'm a member of the Kildare clan. That's my family. Similar to the Scottish clans, but all Indigenous people belong to a clan, family unit. So I belong to the Kildare, and I'm a member of the Seneca Nation, and they are the keepers of the western door of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Haudenosaunee means people of the Longhouse, and formerly known as the Iroquois. And they were farmers, and so they lived in, this was prime fertile land for farming, corn, beans, and squash. So this is a territory that we came to put up our summer farms, and then we go back to our traditional territories throughout New York State, Pennsylvania, mainly in southern Ontario. So anyways, we were very much, had a good positive relationship with our Algonquian brothers and sisters. They are the Ojibwe, the Odawa, the Potawatomi, the Lenape, the Cree. I mean, the language family of the Algonquin is varied, many. They are hunter-gatherers that traveled all the way from the Atlantic Ocean right across to the Rockies. So they required a lot of land in order to survive. Whereas the Haudenosaunee people, we lived in areas where the land was fertile, where we could grow our food. So the harvest and the hunt was our ways of life, our survival. So I just wanted to open up with that, and I'll let Mary Lou introduce the song.
Yes. We always like to take the opportunity to teach everybody something about our culture, and today we want to teach you the water song. Water is so important and vital to everything on earth. Everything on earth needs water to survive, and we need pure, clean water. And so we have to make sure that we have water for the next 7 generations. And that's what our ancestors did since the beginning of time. We always made sure that the next 7 generations to come would have clean water and food available. So it's our responsibility, not just the indigenous people, but all people. We have to make sure that there's water available for the generations to come and that they will have food to eat. So this song is really simple, and like Dan and I get around all over the place, so we're gonna run into you someplace, okay? So this is your assignment. You have to learn this song, and you have to teach it to somebody who's younger than you and tell them about the importance of water. Now, if you can't remember it from today, you can go to YouTube and key in my name, Mary Lou Smoke. I'm singing a couple verses of it at Harborfront. So we'll see you someplace, so be ready, okay? So water is the lifeblood of our mother, the earth, and from the time that we're conceived, we're in water, and that water protects us as we grow and develop. And when it's time for us to be born, the water breaks and we come out into the world, and we need that pure, clean water to survive. Women are in harmony with the water, and women are also in harmony with the moon. Every 28 days, the moon shows her face, and every 28 days, a woman has a purification cycle. So the moon causes a gravitational pull in the water, which causes the constant churning, and that's how Mother Earth cleanses the water through the sand. It sifts. So we have to help her. We have to take care of her and make sure that corporations aren't dumping things in our water that she can't clean. Every month, Dan and I are doing moon ceremonies out at the Sugar Bush, the Fanshawe Sugar Bush. It's open to the public if you want to come out. We gather, we sing songs around a fire, we say some prayers, and everybody contributes something to a feast. So if you want to come on down, all right? So this is a water song. Wichita, do ya, Wichita, do ya, hey. Wichita, do ya, Wichita, do ya, hey. Hey, Atenea, hey, 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 Atenea, hey, 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 Atenea, hey, 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 Atenea, hey, hey. That's pretty simple, right? That's the first verse. So give it a try. Wichita, do ya, Wichita, do ya, hey. Wichita, do ya, Wichita, do ya, hey. Hey, Atenea, hey, 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 Atenea, hey, 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 Atenea, hey, 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 Atenea, hey, hey. Now this verse, I'm going to lip sing, and you guys are going to sing, and I'm going to look around the room to see who's singing and who's not. We call this land Turtle Island, and if I find that you're not singing, we may have to take a vote and kick you off the island, okay? So we wouldn't want that to happen. Dan's going to lead.
Wichita, doo-wee-ah, doo-wee-ah, doo-wee-ah. Wichita, doo-wee-ah, doo-wee-ah, hey. Wichita, doo-wee-ah, doo-wee-ah, doo-wee-ah. Wichita, doo-wee-ah, doo-wee-ah, hey. Hey-ya, Chinea, hey-ya, hey-ya. Hey-ya, Chinea, hey-ya, hey. Hey-ya, Chinea, hey-ya, hey-ya. Hey-ya, Chinea, hey-ya, hey, hey, hey.
That was pretty good. So you can all stay, all right? So now we're going to sing the last verse, like our life depends upon water. Wichita, do ya, do ya, do ya. Wichita, do ya, do ya, hey. Wichita, do ya, do ya, do ya. Wichita, do ya, do ya, hey. Hey ya, Tanea, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, Tanea, hey ya, hey. Hey ya, Tanea, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, Tanea, hey ya, hey. Whoa, Matakwassan. All right. I just said Matakwassan, which comes from the Lakota language. I'm mostly Ojibwe, 5 parts Ojibwe, 1 part Lakota, 1 part Mi'kmaq, and 1 part French. So we go to ceremonies for the Ojibwe people. We go to ceremonies for the Iroquois people in the Longhouse. We got married in the Longhouse in 1977. And we go to the sun dances, and we've gone to the Mi'kmaq country. And to honor my French side, well, sometimes I have some French fries. And sometimes if I'm on a train in the business section, I order a baguette. And I use my accent, and the waiter is very impressed. So here's Dan, and he's going to say a short and condensed version of the Thanksgiving address.
Chimigwats, Marilu. Yes, this is what we say are Yankwaloni, the words that are said before all others. They are very similar to a land acknowledgement. They are words that acknowledge our place in creation. In creation, every form of life is alive, and we are related to every one of those forms of life. So we have a responsibility to help them, that life, take care of itself, and they take care of us. So if we take care of the natural world will take care of us. That's the relationship. It's very much one of reciprocities, and we have had that connection, that DNA connection going since the beginning of time here on Turtle Island. So I'd just like to open up with the water that Mary Lou talked about. Mary Lou mentioned how the water is the lifeblood of Mother Earth. It's feminine, sacred element of life that all creation needs in order to survive. Nothing would survive without the water. So we always acknowledge the water in our Thanksgiving address. The water, all the life that lives in her, all the life that lives on her, continues to take care of us, and she continues to do that, as she always has. So in the spirit of our ancestors, we say Miigwech Niawet for her doing that. We also acknowledge Mother Earth, that other feminine sacred element of life that all creation needs in order to survive. Mother Earth, all the life that lives in her, all the life that lives on her. The crawlers, the four-leggeds, the two-leggeds, the plants, the medicines, the rocks, the minerals, the trees, all the life that lives in the trees and all the life that lives on the trees. For they are part of a life support system that continues to take care of our Mother, the Earth. And our Mother, the Earth, takes care of all creation of the earth. So we acknowledge that Mother Earth is still following her sacred instructions, and she's still following and doing this for all of us, for all creation. We also acknowledge our Father Sky. Our Father Sky represents the air, and our Father Sky breathes that life into all creation. Nothing would survive without our Father Sky. So our Father Sky is also still following his sacred instructions, grandfather, grandmother, so be it in our minds. We acknowledge our eldest brother, the sun. Our eldest brother, the sun, represents fire. And when our eldest brother travels, he travels from the eastern door across to the western door. And as he travels, he shines upon us with the fire, light and heat. So he provides us with heat and light each and every day as he travels across the sky world. So we acknowledge that nothing would survive without our eldest brother, the sun, and that he also is still following his sacred instructions. Grandfather, grandmother, so be it in our minds. We acknowledge our grandmother Moon that Mary Lou spoke about, who is still following her sacred instructions of looking after all female life. Plus, she takes care of the water. She purifies the water on a monthly basis. So we acknowledge the important work that our grandmother Moon does, because nothing would survive without our grandmother Moon, and she's still following her sacred instructions. We also acknowledge the stars. The stars remind us when it's time for us to conduct our ceremonies of Thanksgiving. There's a rhythm in creation in which we observe our Thanksgiving for all of creation, and the stars remind us when it's time to do that. Nothing would survive without the stars, and they are still following their sacred instructions, grandfather, grandmother. So be it in our minds. We acknowledge the thunder beings whose job it was to wake up creation, wake up the world, shake it awake during the time of the thunder moon, usually around February, March. And each time they do that, they acknowledge that the next cycle of creation is about to begin. And as we go through the year, that time, we benefit from the harvest and we benefit from the hunt. And that helps us to survive, as we have always done since the beginning of time. So we acknowledge that the thunder beings are doing very important work throughout the summertime. They bring the purifying rains that cleanse Mother Earth and give all creation a drink for the important work that they do. Nothing would survive without the thunder beings, and they are still following their sacred instructions, grandfather, grandmother. So be it in our minds. We also acknowledge the four protectors. The four protectors are those four celestial beings who look after our spiritual matters. They are the ones who help us with our faith, help us with our beliefs system, and they become a spiritual guidance system to guide us to those good decisions that we need to make throughout our life. Nothing would survive without those four protectors. They work you may call them angels, you may call them spirit helpers, whatever you call them. They are vital to our livelihood and our spiritual guidance. So we acknowledge grandfather, grandmother, that they are still following their sacred instructions, still taking care of us. Grandfather, grandmother, so be it in our minds. And lastly, we acknowledge a higher power we call Sagwayon Dizon. In Mary Lou's language, they say Gijamanado, the maker of our bodies. And the maker of our bodies has put us here because everything we need in this Great Lakes watershed is right here. Everything we need to survive is right here. And that's why we don't have to go anywhere else. We can stay right here and live into perpetuity right here in the Great Lakes watershed, because everything we have and what we need in our livelihood, in our future is right here, as long as we take care of it. That's why we had treaties. We had the treaty of the dish with one spoon. That's very important, one of the first ones in this territory. And that treaty basically says we have to keep the land clean. We have to keep the water clean. We have to only take that which we need. And we also have to make sure that we check in on one another on a regular basis. Take care of each other, just like we did during COVID-19. Just look out for one another and make sure that everyone's doing okay. That's our responsibility. And as long as we do that, that kinship, that extended family relationship will continue to survive. So grandfather, grandmother, we just want to acknowledge in the spirit of our ancestors, we are still striving to follow those sacred instructions and acknowledging our thanksgiving for all of creation, and you are certainly welcome, like Mary Lou invited you to the full moon ceremonies that we do. You're certainly welcome to any of our ceremonies that we conduct. Usually we have a Facebook page, Smoke Signals, and we let people know that anytime they want to come and join us, they are certainly welcome. We only thing we ask is that we do have a feast in which we feast the ancestors. The ancestors like it when we take care of them and when we feed them. So when we do that, we always ask everyone to bring some food. And usually that's always a nice time to visit, socialize, and get together and to check in on one another. Take care of each other. So in the spirit of our ancestors, we say, Miigwech, Niawe, Wilalin, Tapwe, Masicho, Haishkasayam, all my relations, Daneto. Hi, hi.
Matakiwasa, Miigwech.
And we'll turn it back over to Graham.
Thank you so much, Dan and Mary Lou. Miigwech, that was absolutely beautiful. Good morning, and welcome to the London Chamber of Commerce's 45th Annual State of the City Address. It feels great to come together once again in the spirit of collaboration and engagement, experiences that just aren't the same in a virtual world. I'm James Whitaker, Chair of the London Chamber's Board of Directors and also Regional Manager of Construction for Enbridge Gas. Thank you for the outstanding response to our Mayor's first State of the City Address. I am delighted to report that we have another sellout crowd, and if you were not already aware, this is in fact and continues to be the biggest State of the City Address in all of Canada. Give yourselves a round of applause. And how about a round of applause for RBC Place for providing us with a delicious breakfast this morning? We have lots to get through this morning, but first let me introduce you to our head table. Representing our sponsor from Deloitte and our economist for today, Shania John. Representing our principal sponsor, the President of Enbridge Gas, Michelle Herodens. And of course, somebody that doesn't need any introduction, His Worship Mayor Josh Morgan. I would also like to thank the Mayor's staff for all the hard work that they do in getting the Mayor ready and prepared for this morning's address. And I want to particularly recognize Gary Blazik, Nathan Smith, and Heidi Mackel for all their excellent support and cooperation. And also, a nice big round of applause for all of the Chamber staff who work so hard to put this event together for us. I've seen firsthand the growth and innovation occurring locally in London, and Michelle will further highlight how Enbridge Gas is working to meet the energy needs of your growing communities. And speaking of Michelle, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce you to Michelle Herodens, President of Enbridge Gas. Michelle is a seasoned industry executive with more than 25 years' experience. She started her career as a lawyer by training at McGuinness Cooper in Halifax. After 4 years, she joined Shell and quickly rose to the ranks there to become the general manager of the Sarnia facility, right here in southwestern Ontario. Throughout her 16 years at Shell, she developed a reputation for being able to tackle challenges efficiently and ultimately get stuff done. After 16 years at Shell, she joined Spectra Energy, which soon became part of Enbridge. Michelle has shown great leadership in each of her roles since joining Enbridge, and we now feel both pleased and lucky to have her as our president during this time of transition in both our business and the industry. Please join me in welcoming Michelle Herodens.
Well, thank you, James, for the kind introduction. And I have to say as well, what a beautiful ceremony that was. That was fantastic to see and experience and to start off our morning. I'm very proud that as Enbridge, we've committed to respecting Indigenous culture and governance, listening to their concerns, and fostering a deeper understanding of their connection to water and land. On September 8th, we announced a great partnership with 23 Indigenous nations in jointly owning key strategic Enbridge assets in Alberta, and we really believe that this economic model and partnership can be a model for the future and a big part of national reconciliation. On behalf of Enbridge Gas, thank you to Chamber board members and staff for organizing such a dynamic event, and to all invited guests for the opportunity to address you today. I'd like to begin with a big congratulations to the city's new mayor, Josh Morgan. We very much look forward to working with you and your team on future initiatives. At Enbridge, we're committed to a clean energy future, and our business is evolving in order to support our own net zero ambitions as well as those of the communities we serve. With almost 200 Enbridge Gas employees in London and nearly 130,000 customers, we're pleased to be a partner at the proverbial table to fuel the lives of local people and businesses and to collaborate on innovative solutions for climate. Working together is important, and that's demonstrated by the collaboration related to the City of London's Climate Emergency Action Plan. We very much support your vision for a green future, and we're pleased that that plan has already advanced several climate initiatives, which I'd like to highlight shortly. First, I'd like to share, though, that as Enbridge, we encourage energy diversity, or a pipes and wires approach to achieving net zero. Integrated energy sources can optimize energy use, they can reduce costs to consumers, they can provide customers with choice, they can maximize resiliency to extreme weather events, and they can reduce emissions. The energy landscape is evolving, and to help us navigate those complex challenges, we looked to external experts to evaluate different paths to net zero. As a result, the Pathways to Net Zero Emissions for Ontario study was released on September 19th and can be accessed at enbridgegas.com/path to net zero. It's the first of its kind undertaken for the province. The study examined the feasibility of can we even achieve net zero for Ontario in terms of our energy emissions? What are the investments that are needed, and what are all of the related costs associated with those investments? And how could different paths that we choose affect energy dependability and resiliency? In brief, and here's the really great news, it found that net zero energy-related emissions in Ontario by 2050 is possible. It also confirmed what many other studies around North America have found, that there is no single solution. And that's where that energy diversity comes to play. As Enbridge, we've been working with municipalities for a number of years now to explore and advance many clean energy solutions, such as hydrogen, renewable natural gas, compressed natural gas, geothermal and hybrid heating, and other renewables, including wind and solar. And the City of London is leading the way in many areas. In fact, as many of you may know, London was the first municipality in Ontario chosen by Enbridge Gas for its hybrid home heating pilot last year. The program was so successful that it actually sold out, and the province has given the green light to continue with hundreds of new homes now eligible in London and expansion into 3 additional markets. We've also worked with City of London staff to use compressed natural gas in the city's waste collection trucks, and with a CNG fueling station along the London stretch of the Highway 401, trucks from across North America can easily fuel up, displacing diesel-related emissions. And speaking of heavy transport, which actually, by the way, is one of Ontario's top 3 emitting sectors, London's very own Stormfisher facility produced the renewable natural gas, or RNG, that fueled the first carbon-negative public transit bus in the province. In addition to that, Stanton Farms, located just outside of the city, recently became Ontario's first agriculture-based RNG supplier. It's expected to produce more than 3 million cubic meters of RNG every year from on-farm and community-based organic waste. We'll then blend that into our distribution network, and that's enough renewable energy to heat more than 1,300 homes every year. Together, we've really made progress, and we want to keep that momentum going for a long time. That's why Enbridge Gas is also delighted to support the next generation of energy leaders with an ongoing scholarship delivered through the Renewables program at Fanshawe College. In addition to that, we provide very valuable hands-on experience to summer students, and interestingly, many of our technicians that work at Enbridge are Fanshawe grads. Finally, we've worked diligently with Londoners since 2015 to enhance the energy efficiency of their homes, businesses, and industrial processes through our conservation programs. And if you step back and look at what the experts are saying in terms of reducing our emissions, the single greatest thing you can do is focus on efficiency and energy efficiency. To put that into perspective for London, residences and businesses in London have saved more than 33 million cubic meters of natural gas in 4 years. That's roughly equivalent to taking 400,000 gas-powered personal vehicles off the road every single year. Now, each community is unique, and so are their energy needs and capabilities to implement different solutions, and London is no exception. So our message is very simple to you. We're here to work with you. Collaborative solutions between energy companies, governments, municipalities, and Indigenous partners will maintain the delivery of safe, dependable, and cost-effective energy, and in turn will encourage the economic growth that we all want and reduce emissions. And most importantly, it'll ensure that no one in Ontario is left behind. As new energy solutions grow in scope and scale, they'll accelerate our pace, and that's what really excites me the most, investing in those new energies and seeing where that's going to take us. The commitment of many people across many sectors to bring new low and zero carbon technologies to the forefront every day is fantastic, and I'm proud that Enbridge Gas is at the leading edge of that, with the infrastructure and the people in place to make change happen. And now it's my pleasure to introduce another change maker, Mayor Josh Morgan. Mayor Morgan was elected as London's 65th mayor on October 24th of 2022. Prior to that, he served 2 terms as the city councillor for Ward 7, being elected in 2014 and again in 2018 with support from 75% of voters. He was the first in his family to attend university after moving to London in 1998 to study at the University of Western Ontario. During his time there, Mayor Morgan completed undergraduate degrees in economics and political science, as well as a master's in political science. Mayor Morgan's an active member of the London community, serving in leadership positions on multiple boards and organizations. He's previously served as the City of London Budget Chair for both the 2016 to 2019 and 2020 to 23 multi-year budgets. He stepped down from that role when he was appointed Deputy Mayor in December 2020, a position that he occupied until he was elected Mayor in 2022. He's a current member of the London Police Services Board, Western University Board of Governors, as well as boards for London Economic Development Corporation, RBC Place, Tourism London. In addition, Mayor Morgan is a member of the Civic Works Committee, Community Protective Services Committee, Corporate Services Committee, Planning and Environment Committee, and Strategic Priorities and Policy Committee. And on a personal note, he's been happily married to Melanie, an elementary school teacher principal since 2007, and together the proud parents of 4 children. When I look at everything he's doing and the 4 children, it's just amazing. Good for you. So please join me in welcoming Mayor Josh Morgan.
Well, thank you so very much. Miigwech, bonjour, assalamu alaikum, hola, vitam, buongiorno, ni hao, and in all the languages that Londoners acknowledge each other, good morning, and thank you for joining us all. Thank you to the London Chamber of Commerce for organizing this event, and thank you to RBC Place London for hosting. And on behalf of everyone here today and all those watching on the live stream, let me say to Dan and Mary Lou Smoke, your participation and your involvement with this event is so very meaningful. Truth and reconciliation is a deeply personal priority of mine, and one shared by all members of Council and people of the City of London. We are committed to this work on both personal and systemic levels. As Mayor, I pledge to listen and learn from Indigenous communities, build relationships, and deliver results. From my heart, thank you so much for being with us here today. Now, this marks the 44th consecutive State of the City put on by the Chamber, although it's the first time we've been able to assemble in person since 2020. The fact that this important tradition managed to continue even through the pandemic is a testament to Graham Henderson and his spirit of resilience and innovation. Virtues I know are shared by the Chamber of Commerce's board, chamber members, and all of your volunteers. Thank you, Graham. I also want to acknowledge the members of London City Council. I'm truly honored to serve with all of you. Deputy Mayor Sean Lewis and Budget Chair Elizabeth Pelosa, your constituents know you as deeply committed councillors in your respective wards. And in your new roles, all Londoners will benefit from your enthusiasm and dedication to public service. And our city is better for it. Thank you. Similarly, let me recognize all City of London workers, union executives and members, as well as our senior leadership team led by City Manager Lynn Livingston. The support and dedication you provide this council and all members of this community is truly phenomenal. And I'd invite all public servants in attendance today, elected or otherwise, to stand so that your contributions to our city can be acknowledged by fellow Londoners. So if you're a public servant, stand up, don't be shy. I see people in uniform, I see others. Lastly, I want to use this occasion to acknowledge my predecessor, Mayor Ed Holder. During a term marked by turbulent circumstances and tragedy beyond measure, Mayor Holder provided London with steady leadership, comfort, and calm. I'm grateful for his service, and I'm grateful for his friendship. Now, earlier you mentioned that I have 4 kids, and I'd be remiss if I didn't insert a family anecdote off the cuff, because that's what I do when I give speeches. I was practicing in my kitchen, and my daughter Ainsley, who's a teenager, she's 14, she said, "What are you doing, Dad?" And so I explained the speech and all the people who'd be here today, and giving her details about the event. She stopped me and she said, "Wait a second, Dad. People are going to pay to hear you speak? You speak all the time." And I said, "Don't worry, Ainsley, there's a breakfast involved." And she thought that was okay. But my kids, they really do center me, keep me grounded, and I enjoy, every moment that I can spend time with them. But we're gathered here today at the start of a new year, a new term of council, a new mayor, and new opportunities. After having all aspects of our lives completely upended and dominated by COVID for the last 3 years, this really does feel like a fresh start. Our so-called new normal has arrived. Even still, we continue to grapple with another public health emergency. I'm speaking of the most pressing challenge facing our city today: homelessness, poverty, mental health, and addictions. Like COVID before, this is an active public health emergency, a public health crisis. Unlike COVID at present, it is one we must never learn to live with. These are not challenges exclusive to London. People in cities throughout Ontario, across Canada, and around North America are dealing with the exact same issues. St. Thomas, Windsor, Kitchener, Waterloo, Toronto, Halifax, Calgary, Saskatoon, and Vancouver. From Oakland, California, to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Tulsa, Oklahoma, sorry. These are no longer challenges restricted to London's downtown or even the broader core. We see it firsthand in all areas of our cities, in every neighborhood. By now, many of you have heard the statistics and the figures, but these aren't numbers and percentages. These are sons, daughters, cousins, nieces, nephews, brothers, and sisters. As I said just a moment ago, this is something that's being experienced by literally every community, big and small, across North America. And when it comes to our challenges, we are not different, and we are not remarkable. However, we must be remarkable, and we must be different in terms of our approach and our outcome. And that is exactly what is happening right now. Over the last few months, more than 200 Londoners representing 60 different organizations and groups have joined together as part of an effort that's not only the first of its kind in this city, but anywhere in Canada. This is truly historic. It is an unprecedented undertaking. And the goal? Develop not only a plan, but a system. A re-envisioned health and homelessness system that meets people where they are, addresses their most pressing needs, and sets a course for a continuum of supports that helps people achieve greater stability in their lives. For the first time in London's history, we have everyone coming to the table and at the same time wanting to help and committing to action. I'm talking about members of the business community and the development community, representatives from our world-class hospitals, along with community health, social service agencies, emergency services, outreach workers, and charities, all banding together. And this group believes, as I believe in my position as mayor, that in no uncertain terms, housing is healthcare, and housing is a fundamental human right. What's being developed will be anchored by these principles and centered around people, marginalized Londoners in need of supports, but also the many Londoners who provide those supports. These frontline workers, those who have dedicated their lives to this work, they are London's everyday heroes. We honor you, and we are honored to work with you. As we build this system together, we are tearing down silos and focusing on what can be built, rather on what is broken. This is not a panel or yet another task force. Instead, this represents the end of temporary emergency response programs. We are building a permanent and sustainable system. Only a few years ago, many would simply ask, how are you going to fix this? Now the question is, how are we going to fix this? Instead of saying, how come you can't solve this problem? The community is saying, how can we help? Now, answers to those questions are being finalized as we speak, and details on exactly what this looks like, including immediate action items, will be shared publicly next month. However, in the absence of those details, I do have a significant announcement to share with you today in relation to this work. A London family wishing to remain anonymous has stepped up in the most extraordinary way. I have the great pleasure of announcing to you this morning that this family, in support of our community plan and to ensure its rapid deployment, is donating $25 million. That's amazing, $25 million. That represents the single largest gift of this nature in our city's history. But it goes even further. If we're able to generate an additional $5 million through community donations, the donors will match that amount dollar for dollar. All told, that adds up to $35 million to get this work started. So it should come as no surprise that today we're asking for your help. Our city needs you to step up. This morning, I have the great privilege of announcing the launch of the Health and Homelessness Fund for Change. This fund is housed at the London Community Foundation. The website is fundforchange.ca. It is live. Reach out to them. Your donation will be doubled by this wonderful family, doubling your impact. Whatever your circumstance, we need you to dig deep. Whatever you can do, as a Londoner or as a family. What could your business contribute? How could you mobilize your team or network? I need your help. London, it's time for us to lead on this issue. On behalf of all Londoners, to the anonymous family donors, words fail to express our gratitude. Instead, we will demonstrate the depth of our appreciation by virtue of the actions that we will take. And this donation is significant, both in dollars and the impact it will have, but it's more than that. It's a testament to a belief in the process and a validation of the work that is being done. Many of those involved in this effort have been there for years or decades. Some have come to it new, but all share the same commitment. And I want you to know that commitment will be shared by London City Council. We have demonstrated our willingness to make historic and unprecedented investments in the past. And we will be there to support its implementation going forward. And we will also be your strongest possible advocates beyond our borders. The funding announced here today is by no means the final cost. A plan, or rather a system, of this nature requires ongoing funding and supports. While it's true this is a housing issue, it's also a mental health and addictions issue. Unless or until that is prioritized, supported, and properly funded, we cannot achieve the outcomes we are determined to deliver. Housing provides the opportunity to heal. However, it does not on its own solve complex mental health and addiction issues. It also does not on its own address poverty, food security, or skills training. We are in desperate need of these wraparound services and supports. Municipalities do not have the expertise, the capacity, nor the resources to address these increasingly complex healthcare issues that can lead to homelessness or extend chronic homelessness. We've developed great partnerships with the federal and provincial governments, especially over the last few years, and we'll be looking to do so even more meaningful ways in the years to come. Because for the first time ever, we will be making the asks with one voice and with significant funds already raised. At the same time, if this challenge is to be solved by London alone to the exclusion of all other communities, our success will be short-lived and not fully realized. Instead, a solution, a system, must be available to all municipalities, and London has the experience and the necessary compassion to design that system. In spite of this momentum, this enthusiasm, and our shared sense of purpose, we have to be honest about what's involved and what to expect. And I cannot in good conscience return to this podium at the same time next year and tell you everything's been fixed. No one can do that in the span of a year. But here's what we can do. We can pledge that in 1 year, things will be better. And they will continue to get better in the weeks and months and years that follow. But don't mistake our candor and this candor for complacency. The need for urgency could not be more clear. Where this effort is concerned, delays are not measured in days, they're ultimately measured in deaths. We continue to refer to this as a challenge or a crisis. I actually think it's something more profound. This isn't a challenge, this is a calling. It speaks to all of us and who we are as human beings, and what we hope to become as a community. If you believe as I do that this is a calling, you should also believe this. Londoners are ready to meet the moment, and London is ready to lead on this issue. While it's true this is the most pressing issue facing our community today, it is not the only one. A lack of affordable housing, or housing affordability in general, is also a significant concern. At the same time, it represents a significant opportunity. According to Statistics Canada, London's home ownership rate is currently the lowest in Ontario. Our rate is well below the national average, and it's not just home ownership either. Rents in London grew at the fastest pace in the entire country last year. Including condos and other properties for rent, average rents in this city have risen 33.1%. Now, this is a complex issue, and like any complex problem, there are multiple reasons why things are the way they are. However, perhaps the single biggest reason is the easiest to understand. And it's one we as a municipality have the greatest influence in addressing. Put simply, this is a case of supply and demand. We're the fastest growing city in Ontario, and our housing supply is not keeping pace. So quite clearly, that pace needs to accelerate. But what's even more obvious is this. We need to do things differently. We need to be willing to embrace new ideas, explore new partnerships, and develop new programs. There are things that we can be doing, and there are actions that we should be taking. For starters, we must actively explore options to convert unused commercial office space into residential units. Right now, we have over 1 million square feet of unused commercial office space in the core alone. If owners are willing to explore partnerships with the municipality and other orders of government, we should be at the table talking. We've seen this work done elsewhere in Canada, and there's absolutely no reason why it can't work here in London. Now, as of right now, in our downtown, there is a total of 11 towers, either under construction already or in the proposal stage. There are 2 others recently completed and filling up with tenants. All told, those 13 towers represent 3,700 units. Now, that's progress. But in order to take that development to the next level, we must be willing to take a look at whether our existing incentive-based programs are properly incentivizing the types of development we've prioritized, especially in a high interest rate market. And if they work in the downtown, why not deploy some of those same incentive programs to other parts of the city? In the spirit of thinking differently and trying new things, we should be willing to explore similar programs to encourage high-density development in transit villages in the east, west, north, and south. At the same time, similar incentives, especially related to affordable housing, could also be pursued to assist with the creation of more below-market rate and rent-geared to income units. This, too, could accelerate the progress we've already been starting to witness. Remember the roadmap to 3,000? The previous council's pledge to create 3,000 new affordable units of housing by 2026? Well, nearly 75% of that target is either already completed or now in the works. A significant piece of that total is represented by the transformative Vision Soho Alliance's housing development on the old Victoria Hospital lands. Construction there will ramp up this spring, with Phase 1 targeted for completion next year. In a separate commitment, just last week, one of our standing committees recommended reallocating $6.3 million, allowing the city to take more of a leadership role on projects and expediting the development of over 900 units. In addition to that, for the first time in half a century, we are building new housing at the London and Middlesex Community Housing Portfolio. Significant investments have also been made to repair and renovate more than 2,000 existing rent-geared to income housing units. It's not just about giving people a place to live, it's giving them a respectable place to live. As I said, this is a complex issue with a multitude of potential solutions. And you'll probably remember I campaigned on a pledge to enable 50,000 new homes in London over the next 10 years, including 10,000 in the core. And there are solutions available. We have willing partners in the private sector, along with federal and provincial members of government. Together, we will work to ensure more Londoners have an opportunity to realize the dream of home ownership, and all Londoners the dignity of secure housing. Now, we've talked about the unprecedented nature of our efforts on homelessness, mental health and addictions, and housing affordability. But there's a similarly transformational, once-in-a-generation process underway on the future of transportation in our city. It's called the Mobility Master Plan, and it's something I don't think is talked about often enough or properly understood. The plan will determine how London prioritizes all modes of transportation for the next 25 years, in addition to mobility infrastructure, programs, and policies. This literally affects everyone. It includes how we move through the city to access our everyday needs, how we travel to work, and how we get home. This is a plan that will consider our growing population, our community's commitment to climate change goals, and transportation equity, which affects Londoners' economic and social opportunities. The plan will also reinforce London's role as a mobility hub for the entire region. And for my part, now, I believe in the need for new turning lanes at strategic locations on major arterial roads to improve traffic flow and address congestion, along with the expansion of the Intelligent Traffic Light program at additional traffic signal intersections across the city. I'm also on record supporting the development of new north-south and east-west protected cycle lane corridors, as well as the development of higher-order transit options to support our ambitious new housing targets. I've also pledged to do all that I can to ensure the provincial and federal governments hold firm to commitments and timelines to improve GO and Via Rail transportation services to and from London. Now, those may be my priorities, but what we really need are yours. Public engagement and feedback are critical for this initiative. We've heard from thousands of Londoners so far at events, webinars, and through surveys, but we need more. These conversations will continue over the coming months, and your input will make our plan better. In the meantime, and separate from the Mobility Master Plan, several enhancements to public transit are already in the works and coming this year. As just a few examples, I'm pleased to announce that the LTC has plans in place to increase the frequency on 17 routes, in addition to a new express route connecting White Oaks Mall to Fanshawe College. There will also be new service to industrial areas north of Oxford via Clark, Huron, and Robbins Hill Road. And I'm also very proud to announce this morning plans for the launch of what's known as alternative service delivery, operating between Argyle Mall and Innovation Park. These trips would be booked by way of an app, with riders being picked up from Argyle and taken to the destination of their choice within the Innovation Park industrial area. And LTC anticipates that this service will be up and running by this fall. We're finally going to have meaningful transit to industrial areas in our city. In the same way, our rapidly expanding population necessitated much-needed investments in public transit and housing, it's well past time our London Police Service had additional resources. I am in full support of the London Police Service Board's request to hire 52 new frontline officers. For many years, it was almost a point of pride across every metric that our police service was one of the leanest in Ontario, and that simply cannot continue. Not if we want to reduce the rapidly expanding response times, stop human trafficking, and end the exploitation of children. This is also about living up to our commitments to create a safe city for women and girls. Ours was the first municipality anywhere in Canada to make this a clear and focused priority as part of our last strategic plan, and it's one I support renewing in our latest 4-year plan. Organizations like ANOVA, London Abused Women's Centre, ATLOSA, Changing Ways, and the Muslim Resource Centre, they do incredible life-saving work. However, they cannot do this work alone. They require properly resourced services, including the police service. We owe it to them and all of us to make that happen. While it's true there are challenges associated with a growing city, I'm happy to say there are also immense benefits. Yes, our population is increasing faster than almost anywhere else in Canada, and at the same time, our economy is rapidly expanding as well. Over the last 4 years, net employment in London has increased by 41,000 jobs. And according to Statistics Canada, on a per capita basis, that's more than any medium to large-sized city in all of Canada. It's twice as much as Toronto, 3 times greater than Kitchener-Waterloo, and almost 7 times that of Hamilton. 4 years ago, when I was door knocking, I heard from countless families who told me their kids would have to leave London to find jobs. 4 years later, that is no longer the case. When you look at last year alone, and at the downtown specifically, while 20 businesses closed, 52 new ones opened, and 3 expanded. In Old East Village, 10 new businesses opened. And throughout the city, over the course of this year, that momentum will only accelerate. Growth in our tech sector continued, with companies like Track Unit coming to the downtown and several others expanding at leading London firms. Film London attracted a number of exciting film and television productions that created a buzz in our community, including an Apple TV show and The Amazing Race Canada. Production is now underway at the brand new Maple Leaf Foods facility with several hundred additional employees expected to be hired over the course of this year. WSIB will relocate to London later this year, and as many as 150 jobs will be added when Bosco and Roxy starts production in the coming months at its new pet food manufacturing plant. Beyond that, construction is ramping up at the future home of Canada's second Hard Rock Hotel, located at 100 Kellogg's Lane. And several hundred construction jobs will be generated as work accelerates at the future site of Medicom, the first facility to manufacture nitrile gloves outside of Asia. London, Ontario will be critical to Canada and North America's PPE independence. And as a leader in southwestern Ontario, we will also continue collaborating with neighboring communities to develop infrastructure, workforce capacity, and a business climate needed to attract even more investments. By working together as a regional powerhouse, I am extremely confident that we will be able to achieve significant wins this year. In the short term and for the time being, we know London families are dealing with surging inflation. the likes of which we've not seen in almost 40 years. As a municipality, we have no control over the primary drivers of inflation. However, we can play an active role in absorbing inflationary pressures to ensure Londoners are sheltered from their full brunt. And that's exactly what we've done. We're not dramatically increasing user fees, bus fares, or costs of public programs. And an independent third-party analysis shows that when compared with 27 other Ontario municipalities with populations of at least 100,000, residential property taxes in London are the third lowest. Commercial property taxes are the second lowest, and our industrial property taxes are the fourth lowest. And before you ask, don't worry, I'm committed to trying to keep us there. We also have a tourism sector that is roaring back to life after proving itself to be amongst the most innovative and resilient anywhere in Canada during the pandemic. In addition to a return of live sports and entertainment, London hosted the CMA Ontario Awards last summer and our first ever Vanier Cup last fall. This March, we'll welcome the Tim Hortons Briar to Budweiser Gardens, along with the infamous Briar Patch taking place nightly right here at RBC Place. Our sports, culture, and entertainment tourism sector is vitally important not only to our quality of life and overall enjoyment of our city, but also its substantial economic driving force. I believe so much in what we're doing in this area and what's still to come that I made it a priority to join the board at Tourism London shortly after being sworn in as mayor. I'll be working with my fellow board members to attract even more events and more visitors to London than ever before. I hope that was a tourism table. Of course, it certainly helps when you can tell people that London, Ontario is Canada's only UNESCO-designated City of Music. And after receiving that designation just over a year ago, we've only just started tapping into its full potential. We've marked the return of Sunfest and Rock the Park and the Home Country Music Festival, Music and Arts Festival. Not to mention an incredible amount of live music performances across the city, including Dundas Place, Covent Garden Market, 100 Kellogg Lane, the Fanshawe Centre for Digital Performing Arts, and Storybook Gardens, amongst others. We've also recently secured federal funding to pilot a London Music Accelerator. And the City of London Music Expo and Conference in London is coming at the end of March. But I'm very proud to also announce that early next year, in a North American first, representatives from over 58 cities around the world will be converging on London as we host the 2020 UNESCO City of Music meetings. It's safe to say many of those visitors will be arriving by way of the London International Airport, which itself has soared back to life. The airport is now offering the same number of destinations as it did prior to the pandemic, with more to come this year, both international and domestic. And that's a credit to the amazing work being done by Airport President and Chief Executive Scott McFadden and his incredible team. Meanwhile, London remains one of the most desirable cities in all of Canada when it comes to post-secondary education. Enrollment at Western, Brusha, Huron, and King's combined is up 4,500 students over the last 4 years, while enrollment is also up at Fanshawe College. That includes a remarkable 67% increase in international students. And both Western and Fanshawe are working with the city on nearly a dozen climate change research and knowledge transfer projects, including one meant to support municipalities in monitoring and achieving their greenhouse gas mitigation goals. And we're working hard to tackle climate change at the local level. Less than a year after Council voted unanimously in support of adopting a climate emergency action plan, we've seen steady signs of progress, with many more to come. And just recently, London topped a list of big Canadian cities ranked by environmental conditions in a study led by a Dalhousie University researcher. Based on their environmental quality index generated by the researchers, London ranked first amongst the 30 largest cities across the country. And compared to 2005, total greenhouse gas emissions in London have decreased by 30%, driven by a combination of cleaner electricity generation and improved energy efficiency. And we've pledged to hit 55% by 2030, and we'll achieve net zero emissions no later than 2050. The implementation of our ambitious plan touches on all aspects of our community and all areas of our economy. And similar to other complex challenges, it requires participation from everyone and every sector. And I think of Northern Commerce, a chamber member, providing free e-bikes to all employees last year, or S2E Technologies, recently breaking ground on an 84-unit, $55 million net zero community in Riverbend called Eve Park, right next to Sifton's West 5, Ontario's first net zero mixed-use community. Where the City of London is concerned, after enduring a series of supply chain delays, we are anticipating the launch of London's Green Bin program later this year, and the LTC is also set to order its first electric buses as we begin the transition to a fully electrified public transit fleet. And those initial 10 buses are anticipated to be on the roads by next year. We can also look forward to the continued rollout of London's rapid transit system, including the final phase of construction in the downtown loop this year, which I know many people are very excited about, having had to drive here. At the same time, construction will continue on the East London Link, while work gets underway in a matter of months on the Wellington Gateway. Meanwhile, we're optimistic about receiving approvals from federal and provincial governments, which, when paired with a contribution from the city, would represent a $40 million investment in active transportation, the largest ever made in London. And this involves new and improved bike lanes, including stretches along Wonderland and Adelaide, extending the Thames Valley Parkway, more pedestrian crossings, and additional bike parking. Because our commitment to the environment is real. Thank you. Words everybody's been waiting for. I'd like to close by saying, the state of our city is ours to define. We will be defined by our commitment to conquer complex issues, and we will be defined by the work we do together. Whether it's homelessness, mental health and addictions, housing affordability, or the environment. The efforts we make in these areas for the next several months will chart London's course for the next several decades. If not us, then who? And if not now, then when? As we look inward for those answers, we must look outward for solutions in ways we have never done before. Our circumstances compel us to embrace a new era of collaboration, not only amongst us here in London, but with neighboring communities, outside partners, and other orders of government. When we do this, it's not a matter of simply believing we can achieve great things. It's more an exercise of reminding ourselves what's already been accomplished when we commit to this type of collaboration. Think of how we responded when visited by a once-in-a-century pandemic. Our community mobilized like few others. We stuck together. We looked out for each other, and we forged partnerships far and wide. These actions allowed us to emerge faster and stronger than most Canadian cities. Think about how we responded when visited by unspeakable hatred, a deadly terrorist attack that targeted a Muslim family, our London family, an act that traumatized an entire community. We mourned, but then we mobilized. We looked inward and then outward, working with each other and working with others beyond London to develop sweeping and systemic change. The results was a model for all Canadian communities on how we stamp out Islamophobia, racism, and bigotry in all its forms. That same challenge, that same calling, that same urgency now exists on homelessness, poverty, mental health, and addictions. We don't choose the times choose us. And when it comes to choice, let us remember this. Marginalized Londoners who are suffering at this moment are not where they are due to bad choices, or frankly, any kind of choice. They are where they are due to a lack of choice. But we have a choice. The people in this room has a choice. City Council, provincial and federal governments have a choice. You have a choice, all of us do. We can make a choice to provide marginalized Londoners with a chance. And that chance gives way to change, and with change, despair gives way to hope. This is our calling, London. If you don't think Londoners are capable, if you don't think Londoners have the will, and if you don't think Londoners have the commitment, then stand down, because the community we're building for all of London is rising up. Thank you so much. I think we got to wait till they let us speak, yeah. You need permission.
If you know me, that control is very helpful in talking, so thank you for that. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you again.
Thank you.
Isn't this great to have this many folks in the same room
It's like
at the
1,200
same
people are in my
time?
living room now.
Right?
It's very bizarre.
Well, good morning, everyone. For those of you that I don't know, I'm Carrie Robbins. I'm a proud member of the Chamber Board and also a proud employee of TD Bank for the last actually 25 years this year. So, yeah.
Congratulations.
No, don't applause. The child labor laws 25 years ago were very different. That's a dad joke, I think.
I make a lot of those, so don't worry. Yes.
So listen, this is a bit of rapid fire, so if you don't mind, I'm going to do what the celebrities were doing on the Golden Globes this week. They were all bringing their phones up for their speeches, so I thought I'd be cool and I'd have the questions on my phone. So we've got just a few off the cuff for you, if you don't mind, after that sort of strategic plan and speech that you just gave us for lots of different topics. So let me start. During the most recent election, voter turnout across most municipalities in the province was down. And I think London landed at about 25% voter turnout, so needless to say, far lower than the last election. How much of a concern is this to you? And what do you think we can do both as a business community as well as the local government? What can we do going forward to improve it?
Yeah, so a great question, and one that certainly came up right after the election when we saw the results, not just here in London, but across the province. And I think there was a trend that you saw both in the federal, provincial, and then municipal elections. And municipal election always has the lowest turnout of the three, which is incredibly unfortunate, since it's the level of government that manages the services that impact us, every day, from when you walk out your door till when you get home at night. And so, we have to continue to engage with Londoners, not just during election time, but throughout our term of council. We've got 4 years to find multiple ways of reaching out and engaging Londoners on the priorities. The election is just one piece of the democratic process, but I think it is incumbent upon City Council, given the turnout, to find new and innovative ways to engage Londoners throughout the 4 years. And I think back when I first got elected to council, one of the things I wanted to bring in was something called neighborhood decision making, which was a program where we took a part of the city's budget and then said, you know what, we're going to let the community decide. So we now have this program where ideas are submitted by anybody of any age, including kids, seniors, adults, everybody. Those ideas are vetted by city staff, and then they're voted on by the community. And then the top ones we actually make happen. So just by having that program, over the course of the last 5 or 6 years that we've run it, over 50,000 people have voted on those ideas. thousands of Londoners have contributed ideas. The thousands of Londoners have gone out and they've engaged, they've supported, they've campaigned, they've told their classes. Teachers have used it as a learning experience. And that's just one example of when you think a little bit differently between the election, ways that you can engage people in shaping and improving their communities. So the neighborhood decision making, I think, is a great model. It's essentially participatory budgeting, and we need to find many more ways to engage the public. I know my colleagues always talk about, we have public participation meetings. And some people like to come and speak directly to us at council, but I know they're also all committed to going out into the communities they represent and engaging directly with the residents, whether that's hosting ward meetings, knocking on doors, or just sitting in coffee shops and being available to talk and chat with people. So I think that really is what we have to do, is we have to find all of those touch points between elections where we can engage with Londoners.
Yeah, helpful to just draw that connection, right? Like why does it matter to me who's in my local government? I will tell you, my 15-year-old son did say to me during this past election, he said, "Mom, I think the next time this happens, I might be able to vote." So
What's scary for me is my 14-year-old daughter next time could actually run in the municipal election. So that gives my wife and I, we stay up at night.
It's scary. It's scary as they get a little bit older. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit, you started out in your talk talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I do know, particularly through the mayoral race, how important this topic is to you, and we talked a little bit in the debate that we had, just about education in particular. And I know this is something you've spent a lot of time thinking about, a lot of time crafting in your platform, as well as talking in terms of execution now. But why is this such a deeply personal issue for you?
Well, I grew up in rural Plympton Township, so not the most diverse place in the world. And it wasn't until I came to university at Western, and I know Western people are probably excited that I'm talking about them. Came to Western, they're there. I came to Western, and let me tell you what was a phenomenal experience for me, a life-changing experience at Western for me, is being in a place where people from all over the world came. And in the atrium at Western University, every week there was a different celebration of a culture or a religion or a different part of the world that I had never been exposed to before. And so for me, that was something that I quickly realized. I was like, this is a part of my life, an experience that I'd never had. And there's so much to learn from just being engaged in this type of work, which is why I think on the diversity, equity, anti-racism, anti-oppression work, why I've been incredibly supportive of the work, the amazing work that our staff have been doing, and our city manager and the team in the anti-racism, anti-oppression division that we now have, one of the few cities in Canada that has that, building up that capacity at the city, having that in the organizational structure to be able to do the work is a huge advantage that London has. And I sat on Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and I sat specifically on their anti-racism and equity committee. And I can tell you, the work that we're able to do because of that capacity here is not something other municipalities have. And so it is also incumbent upon us to share our experiences, share the knowledge, and share the work. But it's also at the center of a community that is becoming more diverse and more inclusive every day. And at the end of the day, London should be a place where everybody can feel a sense of belonging. And I think I use the word belonging because often you say tolerate, and then we use these other words, and people don't want to be tolerated. They want to belong to a community. And when you look at the amazing communities we have across the city, and a campaign is a wonderful example to go to event after event after event where you're going to different places, there is this rich culture in our city that I think flies under the radar. And I think over the next few years, it's incumbent upon us and all those who organize events to try to share and expose everybody else to those wonderful segments and pockets of diversity. And it's not just, it's funny because you see people from diverse communities engaging with other diverse communities and learning about each other. So I said during the campaign, I see London, and this is where I went to art school once upon a time, I see London as a mosaic, right? And so for those who know what a mosaic is, it's a piece of art that is a whole bunch of small, differently colored squares that when you put them together, you step back and you see you see the actual piece of art. And if you think about all of those small differences, whether it's religion, race, ethnicity, perspective, orientation, all of those differences in London are part of our city. And it's not until you step back and see them all working together that you see the masterpiece that we can really achieve in our city. So, so it's important work for me, and it stems from my background of not really having the opportunity to have had that experience, growing up in elementary and high school.
And I really relate to your comment that you made in your talk, Mayor, just about it is a journey, so don't expect in a year that we're going to be finished. So on the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think that applies most, because it's a journey of education to understand first, and then action can go from there. So that's important. Thank you. Thank you. These are really weighty topics, so I appreciate the rapid fire here. So let me carry on with that theme. Aside from health and homelessness, one of the central themes of your address this morning focused a lot on collaboration. We often hear politicians talking about working together, but based on your remarks, you seem to take a wider lens on that particular issue. What does that look like, and what types of collaboration are you referencing?
Yeah, so let me tell you why I focus on collaboration so much, and why I'm even more so talking about collaboration beyond just within our city. Because of course we have to collaborate with each other within the City of London. But the types of complex challenges that we face today, and so for us to truly, if we're going to be genuine about our work in this space, it requires a thoughtful collaboration, not only within the city, but with regional partners, with other orders of government, and with other cities across the province. That's why I have tried to take and step into a bit of a leadership role with the Ontario Big City Mayors. I would say myself and Mayor Patterson of the City of Kingston basically offered and are doing the work on our mental health addictions, homelessness, and housing work that will prep that caucus for meetings with the province that we'll have in the coming months. The reason why I would lean into that space is because these are not challenges that we can solve just in London. We absolutely must do the work that we need to do within our city. But we need to inspire and compel others to do the work as well, regionally and across the province and across the country. It is the only way we will solve these challenges, because they are not defined by the city border. I remember in an economics class way back when.
Really? You're going to go there?
I am.
Economics
Someone
class.
saying, asked the question, why are industrial areas of cities always kind of in southwestern Ontario on the south and east?
Yeah.
It's because the wind blows all the pollution somewhere else, right? We can't think that way anymore. We have to be collaborative. We have to think about the impacts that we have on others and the ways we can work together to achieve meaningful change in collaboration beyond our city borders.
Yeah, super helpful. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm going to cheat a little bit. That was meant to be our last question, but I want to sneak in one, and I promise it's not the question around Via Rail, which I always ask. Bring back Train 82, just saying. If you can help us do that, that would be great. Love to get to Toronto before 10:30.
There's federal folks here, so yeah.
But I wanted, in all seriousness, just, I want to make sure that we're addressing what the audience might be thinking, and that is, from your remarks this morning, covered a lot of ground. What would you like the London community to be most excited about in the coming year?
I want the London community, and it's really hard to emphasize the importance of this work. I want the London community to recognize that the collaboration I talked about with the work on housing and homelessness, health, housing, and homelessness, the 200 individuals, 60 agencies coming together, and I know that there are members of that group sitting in this room. That work is transformational. That is work that is not being done anywhere else right now. And I think for years we've looked at, a siloed-based approach of funding things, but it inspires me to see a group of people who don't necessarily always agree on things to come together with a common purpose and common focus to design a system that will make a difference, a system centered around people, with the people who are involved and capable of the change in the room doing the conversations. And I think that I think we're going to see some pretty inspiring and amazing things that come out of that initially, and then flow from that work later. So, you know, the impression I want to say, and maybe I'll say it as a thank you, I want to personally thank everybody who's involved in that work. I know some people who are sitting in those rooms have made it their lifetime commitment to work with marginalized members of our community, and they must be tired and frustrated and just wanting desperately to see meaningful change happen. And I think that I truly believe that this work is going to create that catalyst for the change. So that's, if there's one impression I could leave with everything I talked about today, it's really less about what I said and more about the work that they're doing and what you're going to see come out of their work.
Maybe collaboration. Thank you so much. Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough for sitting here. I know they call it fireside chats. There's never a fire, but maybe it's because you're in the hot seat. So I really, really appreciate your time, Mayor, and congratulations again. And yeah, great remarks this morning. I think we're handing it over to my colleague, Heather.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Morgan, for your comments and insights about the future of our fine city. As a chamber, and indeed as an entire business community, we are very fortunate to have you at the helm of our municipal government, leading us through the next 4 years. And Carrie Robbins, thank you for your help today with the fireside chat and getting to those difficult questions. And before I introduce our economist from Deloitte today, please let me thank all of our sponsors who helped to make today's event a success. Our principal sponsor, Enbridge Gas. Our platinum sponsors, Deloitte LLP, CN Rail, and Labatt. Our silver sponsor, Covent Garden Market. Our bronze sponsors, Manage Point Technologies and Shirley Mitchell London. And our media sponsors, Bell Media and the London Free Press. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our economist from Deloitte. Shania John is an economist within Deloitte's economic advisory practice based in Toronto. She is an experienced professional with a background in econometrics and over 5 years' experience in the field of economics. Prior to joining Deloitte, Shania's experience includes foreign policy work with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the Commonwealth of Dominica. At the firm, Shania has worked on various economic projects relative to government and public services, including education, health, housing, and infrastructure, as well as consumer industries and forecast development. And now please welcome to the podium, Shania John.
Thank you, Heather. So good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you all here today and to speak about the Canadian economy. This presentation will focus on areas and trends in the economy that will play a key role in short and long-term growth. And with that said, there are 3 key messages I want to leave you with today. The first being the economy is set to enter a soft patch as rising interest rates start to bite and supply chains rebalance. While growth is slowing, the labor markets remain very strong, helping to support consumer spending. Now, most growth in the past couple years has been coming from the housing sector and government sector, which really fueled growth coming out of the pandemic. However, high levels of debt taken on to do so are expected to weigh in. And as a result of this, which is my third point, is that Canada will need to rely less on the housing and government side of the economy, but more towards the business side to fuel long-term growth. Unfortunately, we will see here that this is where Canada has some weakness. Business improvement is improving, business investment is improving, but is remaining weak. And the result is a soft patch for the economy where we do see a small recession. So in talking about the economy, I think it's really important to look at how far we've come and where we are at present. And over the last few years, this chart shows trends in GDP and unemployment. And the key takeaway here would be that the Canadian economy has strongly recovered from the pandemic, which at its height, GDP fell over $325 billion below its 2019 levels. The speed of recovery was almost as quick as the initial decline, with many sectors picking up in 2021 and 2022. Now, while economic growth began to moderate last year, GDP remained relatively solid, even while inflation soared to a 40-year high. Now, a challenge that limits this growth is the availability of labor. Unemployment has dropped significantly, reaching 5% as of last month and remaining relatively unchanged over the last few months. On the other hand, we do see high vacancy rates. Now, despite the slowing growth, labor markets remain very tight. We see a situation where there is strong demand for workers, coupled with decelerating supply as baby boomers leave the workforce. And it remains a case where participation rates for core-age workers are near all-time highs. However, when we look at persons 55 and over, rates are much lower than pre-pandemic levels. And this is really due to an increasing number of workers retiring, and these trends are expected to remain into the medium term despite the slowdown. Now, looking at London, we see a similar story. From the chart on the left, we see that London has experienced much stronger growth, job growth, as it relates to other economic regions, such as Toronto, and then looking at the province of Ontario as a whole and Canada. Now, in a period where labor markets are really tight, and we see a high level of employment, as displayed in London, this really speaks to strong labor market demand. Now, similarly, the chart on the right shows the job vacancy rates in London are still very high. And these elevated jobs will really provide a cushioning effect for London, as we see more of these job postings disappear than actual jobs during the slowdown. And this elevated level in London should really help to minimize and mitigate some of the job losses associated with the forthcoming recession. Now, one thing that really weighs in on long-term growth from the consumer side of things is their high level of debt. Now, as Canada moved to a period of high consumption and excess demand, the Bank of Canada announced increases in interest rates to reduce inflation and moderate long-term growth. And this really impacted consumers. Now, with monetary policy leading to an increase in interest rates above 4%, we see the Canadian households are also sitting on the highest debt-to-income ratio that exists in the country's history. And this is really expected to weigh in on consumer spending, with many households now redirecting their spending to servicing those debts. As well, while average wages have seen strong growth in the past year, it remains far below the rate of inflation, ultimately limiting consumers' contributions to Canada's long-term growth. Now, looking at the housing sector, one of the most significant downturns we're seeing in the midst of higher interest rates is in the housing market. Now, mortgage rates have increased significantly, and this has made housing a bit unaffordable for some buyers, moving some of them to the sidelines. As more buyers are pushed out of the market, the number of homes switching hands on the resale market also fell. And this reduction in demand in turn translated to a decline in average resale home prices, as well as what we can see from the chart on the left. Now, we have already begun to see a decline in new home construction driven by high interest rates and rising input costs. However, over the long term, new housing starts are likely to be driven by demographic requirements, measured by household formation. So while the aging of our population will negatively impact household formation, high immigration levels will continue to generate demand for housing, keeping housing starts at an elevated level. Now, with this considered, in the long term, Canada will have to lean on the business side of the economy to really fuel long-term growth. However, when we look at the current state, it's clear that Canada may face some challenges. Now, on this slide, what I show here is merchandise exports for Canada split into two groups: energy exports and non-energy exports. And the key takeaway here is that the slowdown in the world economy, particularly for Canada's trading partners, will affect trade, delaying growth in exports. Now, energy exports remain the backbone of Canada's trade growth, and over the last 2 decades, non-energy exports has remained more or less flat. And pointing you to the black line on the chart, we see here U.S. import growth, and this is Canada's largest trading partner. Now, U.S. imports have risen by over 10% in the last 3 years. However, Canada has only managed to capture less than 2% of that growth. And this really shows that we're actually losing market share with a key trading partner. And that points to challenges in our manufacturing sector to meet demand, as well as weak business investment. So, to support long-term sustainable growth in Canada, business investment really needs to pick up. And this is how Canada can increase capacity and retain competitiveness among world economies. Unfortunately, while business investment has remained sluggish for years, it's because companies remain hesitant to invest, and this really paints a grim picture for Canada's long-term export performance. Now, overall in London, with the job market holding up really well, one of the risks we're flagging here on the investment side is business investment. And this isn't particularly surprising or solely concentrated in London, as the impact of higher interest rates means that it's becoming more expensive for households and businesses alike to take on new debt. So we expect this to persist as persons and businesses adjust to higher interest rates and adjust to the highest interest rate environment. And putting all this together, this leaves the economy in an interesting situation, where Canada is expected to enter a slight recession. With inflation rates still high, we expect to see a pullback in consumer spending, moving in tandem as inflation comes down. At the same time, low business investment will affect trade growth, which, when combined, results in a contraction for the economy. All provinces are expected to see and experience a downturn in economic growth this year, similar to what we see at the national level, except for Newfoundland, where growth will moderate thanks to investments in oil, and Saskatchewan, where potash investments will show bounce back, as well as in agriculture, supporting growth. But from a business perspective, labor market tightness is expected to persist, and some of this downturn will be the result of higher inventory levels. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shania, Mayor, Michelle, James, everyone, and of course all of you in the audience for staying with us through this incredible presentation. Mayor, I think it's safe to say that we at the Chamber are all excited by the messages that you brought to us in London today. Your messages are those which we can uplift, uphold, celebrate, and roll up our sleeves and dig in together in a spirit of collaboration. I do want to thank Abe Oudshorn and Marianne Griffith from the London Environmental Network for the videos that they provided to us today that you saw during the breakfast. Thank you very much, Abe and Marianne. And I want to just add my personal thanks to Mary Lou and Dan, who've gone. Mary Lou, by the way, is in the London Hall of Fame, Music Hall of Fame, and she's been on the music scene forever. What an amazing couple. You know, the theme of the water song and pure water, we live in a country where across our country, Indigenous peoples are dealing with boiled water warnings, including in our community. So I think there was a call to action also in their presentation today. So I'd add to her, you know, I'm glad we tried to learn the song, but I think we need to take to heart that message and we need to leave here and try to decide what we, in our own ways and in our professional capacities and in our businesses, what the heck are we going to do to fix that situation? With that said, I want to thank you all, and I turn you loose into this very unsteady weather. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I just love it. Everything you
I
said.
hope so. I hope.
Oh, no, it's just...
I'll tell you a funny story. So I was a little bit distracted
Yeah.
because I set down my personal phone on a table talking to someone somewhere, and it got lost. And so Nathan and my staff, I see them buzzing around trying to figure out like where. And they find it halfway through, right?
Where was it?